عرفت الهوى مذ عرفت هواك، وأغلقت قلبي على من عداك. عرفت الهوى مذ عرفت هواك، وأغلقت قلبي على من عداك. وكنت أناجيك يا من ترى خفايا القلوب ولسنا نراك. وكنت أناجيك يا من ترى خفايا القلوب ولسنا نراك. أحبك حبين، حب الهوى وحبا لأنك أهل لذاك. أحبك حبين، حب الهوى وحبا لأنك أهل لذاك. فأما الذي هو حب الهوى فشغلي بذكرك عمن سواك. وأما الذي أنت أهل له فكشفك للحجب حتى أراك. عرفت الهوى فعرفت هواك، وأغلقت قلبي على من عداك. عرفت الهوى مذ عرفت هواك، وأغلقت قلبي على من عداك. وكنت أناجيك يا من تراك.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First and foremost, ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Selamat datang Tuan Roslan. Very warm welcome to you. Before we start the class, inshallah we'll recite the intention. A'udzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Nawaitu ta'aluma wa ta'lim wa tadhakkura wa tadhkir wa nafa'a wal intifa' wal ifadah wal istifadah wal hatha 'ala tamasuki bi kitabillahi wa sunnati rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa du'a ila al-huda wa dalalah 'ala al-khair ibtigha'i wajhillah wa mardatihi wa qurbihi wa thawbihi subhanahu wa ta'ala. We intend to learn and to teach, to remember and to be reminded, and to remind, to benefit ourselves and to benefit others, to serve and to be served, to encourage observance of the book of God and the way of his messenger. Upon him and his family be peace. The call towards guidance, to direct towards the good, to seek thereby the countenance of God, his satisfaction, his closeness, and his reward, the most exalted, the most high. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi katsiran. Wala hawla wala quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Thank you for making it to the fourth and final session before we break for Ramadan. So as usual, we will just go for a quick overview of the things we covered in the last session. So in the third session, Incha Roslan talked about the importance of the worldview of Islam in furnishing the true conception of the nature of man and the psychology of the human soul, as being rooted in the Quran and Sunnah, which equates the knowledge of the higher education rooted in revelation, higher order of existence, rooted in revelation. And this importance becomes more apparent against the onslaught of the modern science, which has induced a monopoly on contemporary knowledge, and the main consequence of this being what's called the disenchantment of nature, which means the loss of the spiritual message in the world around us. So because of this, then it's a consequence of the modern science trespassing into the theological realm, And this is induced in turn by the reduction of nature to the immediately sensible reality, which is the hallmark of positivist thought. And this loss in turn then causes the people the world over losing sight of God as al-haq, or the ultimate reality. And this is then the main reason for the many psychological crises that has been induced by modern science. So this loss of the sight of God entails the kind of manufactured amnesia, clashing with the conception of man as insan. And insan here is defined as the microcosmos, which epitomizes all forms of cosmic realities. And in order to embody this assertion, one needs to understand the metaphysical framework underpinned by the worldview of Islam. And it's only by embodying this that, key Islamic terms like insan, deen, and so on and so forth become meaningful to the Muslim in their experience. And then this would then elevate the understanding of the nature of man as insan having ultimate significance in all areas of our lives, especially morally, ethically, and spiritually, because this has to do with us assenting to the dual nature of man, being both body and spirit, and which in turn coheres to our practice of worship as having the akhirah aspect in mind. And with that, we then pass the mic to Sheikh Ruslan.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم صل على نور الأنوار والعسل الأسرار والتليا قراء يا رب المفتاح بأبي اليسار سيدنا محمد المختار عليه الأطهار وأصحابه الأخيار عدد نعم الله وإفضاله أما بعد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So we continue again our discussion on the nature of man, which is very interesting. The subject matter is, and the element of nature of man is a part of the fundamental element of the worldview of Islam. So that's why we have, I think I used to mention in our last session that the position of man is higher than any other creation. That it is very obvious. And even it is higher than of the angels. Okay, when we compare human with the creation of angels, we are more superior than the angels, because when we look at the angels in terms of its nature of creations, we see that the nature of angel is solely spiritual, or in Arabic we call it ruhiyah, meaning it is solely or merely spiritual, or in according to Fakhrul Razi, the nature of their intellect is what we call in Arabic Aqal Qudsi, meaning that the pure intellect, that intellect doesn't have any kind of distraction like our intellect. Our intellect have to face all kind of distraction from our physical inclination, which is become a part of our hayawani aspect, okay, which we're going to touch about it later. Okay, and then while we said that just now, the nature of angel is merely or solely spiritual or ruhiyah, but when we look at the nature of man, it is both spiritual and bodily, ruhiyah and badaniyah. So it is both, okay, ruhiyah and badaniyah. So like when we see in the case of our Prophet Adam, what joins in him is two forms: the form of the world, or the visible elements, okay, the element of alam al-mulk or alam al-shahada. Okay, the element of the visible world, or the form of the world, of this physical world, and then the other one is the form of the absolute, okay, or the element of al-malakut, okay, a part of the angelic realm. So which is invisible. So they are both the form which is visible and the form which is invisible. Okay, invisible. One represent alamul mulk and another one represent alam al malakut. They are both. Okay, so meaning that we stands above the sphere of, even when we talk about the physical body of man, the physical body of man, when it is being introduced with what we call nafs an-natiqa, or the rational soul, or something that bring breath, something of God's spirit being breathed unto the physical body of man. So it become what we call in Arabic bashar. So when we talk about the bashar, the element of bashar is above another element. So there's something very, very interesting that we need to know. And then I used to mention also last time that with regard to men, God put into us all kind of realities, meaning that not just realities that exist in this world, but realities that contain in another world. Okay, that world referring to the alam al malakut, meaning that they are both element, meaning that the element or realities of all things that exist in this world and realities that exist in those world. Okay, so it is something that insan is something like epitomizing all kind of realities, realities of this physical world and the realities of those world, or what we call alam al-malakut. Okay, so this is what being synthesized in ourselves. Okay, so that's why with regard to the realities of this physical world, there are three realities. There are two, vegetative and animals. Okay, the realities, but that reality, or we say that that reality is not exist in themselves in their concrete individual form. So when we say that there are realities of this physical world exist in us, okay, or being synthesized in ourselves, it is not exist in a form of concrete individual things like what we see outside. Okay, it is not in a form of concrete individual forms. Okay, but it is something that we call universal form. Okay, universal form. So when we talk about haqiqah or haqa'iq, it is in the form of universality. So it is not in the concrete physical or individual form. Okay, so this is what we used to mention before in our talk. So today I would like to at least elaborate a little bit of those kind of realities, and we see that in us they are, at least when we talk about our physical body or the level of our bashar, okay, our physical body, or at the level of our corporeal bodies, okay, there are two main element or two aspect of realities. First, we something that relate with vegetative. Okay, so that's why we in Arabic we use the word an-nafs an-nabatiyah. So because that kind of element is also exists in vegetative kingdom. Okay, that kind of thing also exists in vegetative kingdom. But when it exists in us, because the source of the act for that vegetative element is our soul, so we call it an-nafs an-nabatiyah, okay, the vegetative soul, okay, the vegetative soul, because the mabda al-fi'l in Arabic, the translation for that is the source of the act. For that kind of element, although it is also outside, but when it is in us as a universal reality, which representing the vegetative kingdom, okay. So when it is in us, the source of the act for that kind of vegetative aspect or element is our soul. So that's why we say that when it has certain specific movement as relate to its nature, so we call it an-nafs an-nabatiyah, or the vegetative soul. Okay. The vegetative soul have three main faculties. First, nourishment, or in this book, Prof. Alatas used the word nutrition or nourishment. Almost the same, nourishment. Growth, this the faculty of growth, okay. Namiyah in Arabic, quwwah an-namiyah, the faculty of growth, and the faculty of reproduction, meaning that it has a power to reproduce. In Arabic, the word is muwallidah, quwwah al-muwallidah, okay. The first one, quwwah al-ghadiyah, meaning that the power of nourishment, the power of just now, what is the word that I mentioned? Nutrition, the power of nutrition, and the power of growth, and the power of reproduction. Okay, there is a three main sub-faculties of an-nafs an-nabatiyah. Okay. So, if this faculty also exists at another level of element or realities which represent the reality of the animal kingdom, okay? When it is in us, I just mentioned, because the source of the act for that kind of element is our soul. So when that element that exists outside in the species of animal, so we said that when it is exists in us as a part of universal reality, so we call it an-nafs al-hayawaniyah, or the animals, or the vital soul, okay? Animal soul or the vital soul, okay? Because it is now exists in us, okay? So if this just exists in animal, so we said that it is something different, okay? In terms, even it is the same in terms of the reality, but when it is exists in us, that kind of reality will function differently from the element, the same element that exists in the animal, okay, in the animal kingdom, okay. So when it is exists in us, we call it an-nafs al-hayawaniyah, okay, because it have first it have something like what we call sensation. Sensation, meaning that this sensation, he have something got to do with the power of perception, and this this power or faculty of perceptive or perception. First, it will seek something that will, for him, being perceived as something that beneficial to them, and then some other time, it will flee from what is harmful to them. Okay, so this also exists in animal, and this is also exists in us. Okay, because we also seek something that is beneficial to us, and sometimes when it is something which we perceive as harmful, we will withdraw ourselves from it, or we will flee ourselves from it, because it is harmful in through our perception. Okay, and then this nafsul hayawaniyah also having a sense of emotive, having a sense of emotive. This something like a sort of feeling, and something that having the ability to arouse intense feeling. This is a sense of emotive that exists in an-nafsul hayawaniyah. And this nafsul hayawaniyah also sometimes, because of those faculties, those faculties will motivate it to a certain purpose. Okay, but if it is in animal kingdom, that motivation is something instinctive. It's different from when it exists in us. Okay, when it exists in us, it is not anymore instinctive. Okay, it is based on a certain kind of act, which we call ikhtiyar. Okay, so this is something different from us with another another kind of living being, or when we want to see the difference between us and the animal. So the difference is because of the motivation. The motivation, if it is in animal, it is something instinctive. Meaning that when we use the word instinctive for animal, so the motivation, they receive their motivation, the power that motivate them to do something, that element which make them to do something, or to seek for something, or to flee from something, is come from the invisible world, not from their own self. It is come from the invisible world. Okay, meaning that they receive its order, whether it order to flee or order to seek something that they even when they perceive something as beneficial, it is also instinctive. Okay, it is also instinctive. That sense of a sense for them, when they sense that something is beneficial, that also not from themselves. It is also not from themselves. It is something that comes from the invisible world. Okay, not from this world. Meaning that some element involved that creates some kind of instinctive element in them. It is different from human being. When we talk about human being, any of our action is based on freedom of choice. So that's why in Arabic we use the word af'al ikhtiyariyah. Okay, af'al ikhtiyariyah. It is kind of action that based on our freedom of choice. Okay, and that freedom of choice is a true freedom of choice. Okay, so this is something that we going to discuss later about the nature of humans' free will or freedom of choice. This is a very complicated subject matter, which I think we're not going to discuss it now. So maybe we discuss it later after we understand, or we discuss other things that bring our proper understanding about that kind of topic, freedom of choice or humans' free will. Okay. So in reality, when we talk about the corporeal body or the material world, any reality in the material world is under the influence and domination of the angelic realm, not from the existent themselves. Okay, like I mentioned just now, like in animal, anything that becomes something like a sense of seeking something, as if they perceive that something is beneficial or something is harmful. Everything is actually, it's not from themselves. It is not from themselves. Because when they do something, they don't have, like us, consciousness. They don't have that kind of something, faculty that creates some kind of awareness and consciousness. Okay, everything is instinctive. Everything is instinctive, meaning that anything is under domination of another realm, not this physical realm, even not from even not from themselves. Okay, it is something from outside or something that transcends themselves. Okay? So it is different from human being. Okay? Because when we talk about human being, any of our action is subject to reward and punishment. So that's why any of our action is the action of choice, af'al ikhtiyariyah. It is actions of choice, based on choice. Okay, but we have to see again or to read other book by Professor Atas on happiness. I think on happiness, which discuss about the freedom of choice, about the word ikhtiyar. What what is the meaning of freedom of choice there by through the word ikhtiyar? So, in our discussion, so in the, we understand that our nature is totally from other creation. Okay, so like when we see this book, when Prof. Alatas mentioned about nafsul hayawaniyah, so first we can see that there are two sub-faculties over there. Two sub-faculties, faculties that display the movement and the faculty that cause the movement. Okay, the faculty that which itself active, you can see for further this understanding on this part, you have to read and see and read carefully this book, Nature of Man. Okay, so there are two sub-faculties and one faculty. That faculty itself is active. So the Arabic word that being used by Prof. Al-Tas here is fa'ilah. It itself is active. And another one is the motive power, operate as the arouser of action. In Arabic, al-ba'ithah ala al-fi'l. Ba'ithah ala al-fi'l. The motive power operates as the arouser of action. Okay. So when you talk about the faculty of movement, quwwah al-muharrika, the faculty of motive, quwwah al-muharrika, this quwwah al-muharrika, the faculty of movement, functions sometimes to attract something, and sometimes it function to drive away something. Okay, sometimes it function to attract something because that thing is perceived as beneficial to him, and sometimes it function in driving away something because from its perception that thing is harmful or non-beneficial. Okay. So this power of and then we have another faculty. Another faculty is the quwwah al-mudrika, or the perceptive faculty. Okay, perceptive faculty, another faculty that exists in the animal soul. Okay, quwwah al-mudrika. The first one is quwwah al-muharrika, the faculty of motive, and another one is the faculty of perceptive. Okay, perceptive. Okay. So of all of these faculties is in order to fulfill what is desires, motivating by another two sub-faculties, the shahwaniyah, the faculty of desire, and the faculty of anger. Okay, there are two sub-faculties that play a role in this aspect. Okay, and the first, the faculty of desire, which attract by what it considers beneficial. Faculty of desire, which attracts by what it considers beneficial. So therefore, it will act upon the feeling of inclination, and it will arouse its active power in order to attain it. That the faculty of desire. And then we have the second sub-faculties, the faculty of anger, which concerns the driving away of what it considers harmful or disagreeable. So its aversion for it arouses its active power to avoid and to outcome it, whether to avoid or to outcome it. Okay, that I think this thing a little bit complicated, and then it's a little bit difficult to explain actually. But I will explain again next time, inshallah, in a very simplest way, okay, and try to bring some example for it. Okay, because I think later we're going to use the whiteboard, not now or not today. I think later in the next series of discussion, I'm going to draw one by one all the faculties that involve in us, and that represent the reality of which one that represent the reality of the alam al-mulk, and which realities that represent alam al-malakut. Okay, which one is the most superior and which one that always need to be suppressed and subordinated. Yeah. So so that's why in this case, going back to the human soul, we mentioned that human soul occupies a very significant role in this world, and it occupies a key role in grasping of knowledge, and then it play a role in the process of knowing of God. Okay, that are two main aspect of human soul. Okay, so meaning that the human soul play its role in the different contexts that relate to the knowing of God, and relate to the process of knowledge that leading to the knowing of God. Okay, the human soul in that context play its role and significant in the context of knowledge, and also in the context of ethical significance. Okay, so that's why in the context of knowledge we have a faculty that we call nafs an-natiqah, rational soul, and this rational soul has two sub-faculties. Okay, the faculty of the faculty of theoretical reason, quwwah al-alima, and the faculty of theoretical reason, quwwah al-amilah. Okay, the first quwwah al-alima, the faculty of the theoretical reason, and another one is the faculty of the practical reason, quwwah al-amilah. Okay. Briefly about the theoretical reason. This theoretical reason, or quwwah al-amila, quwwah al-alima, quwwah al-alima, looks into abstract subject like knowing God, about the divine world, about the metaphysical element. So this is the role of the theoretical reason, or quwwah al-alima. And then the practical intellect conducts the behavior of the soul in its relation to the body in order to direct it towards divine knowledge. That the role of the practical intellect. Okay, so that's why we in our case now we need to have real psychology in order to understand this kind of thing. Okay, real psychology, not what we have now, the modern psychology, because modern psychology doesn't have this kind of element, or did not explain in this manner as what we are trying to explain. So we have to have a real psychology, and this real true psychology cannot be confused with modern psychology. Cannot be confused with modern psychology, because when we talk about the real true psychology, it must have a close connection with metaphysics. That is the real true psychology. It must have a close connection with metaphysics. So its content is about human soul, not about the mind. Not just about the mind, or not just about the neurosystem. Okay? Its content is about the nature of the human soul. And when we make to understand about the human soul, we can think after that what kind of appropriate discipline that can transform ourselves to the real true self, which this not be able to be done by the modern psychology. Okay, the real true psychology in Islam, okay, can make you know, even though the knowledge about the nature of soul is very little, but it is great actually. It is a great knowledge, although it is little in according to what God mentioned in the Al-Quran. I give you the knowledge about your soul, but it is very little. But that little, it is actually sufficient, and it is actually a great kind of knowledge. So by that kind of little knowledge that has been given by God unto us about our own self, we can know how to govern it properly, and we can know how to bring back ourselves to our own true real self. Okay, that's the important things about this little knowledge, and in fact it is a great knowledge. Okay, and because of that, because this knowledge, we try to think of what kind of another discipline that could be called as an appropriate in order for us to transform ourselves to the real true self. So that's why in Islam, by motivating by the urge to know about our own self, we try to develop all kind of sciences that we feel or that we certain that it is something appropriate in order for us to transform ourselves from one state to another stage, or to elevate our self to from one level to another highest level. Okay, that's something interesting about this kind of thing. So this is what we call the true real psychology in Islam. And our psychology is actually not bound by the phenomena and accidents. Okay? The Arabic word for accident is a'rad, meaning that we are not bound by the phenomena, the phenomenal elements, like about this world, about the mind, about the nervous system, and we are also not so concerned about the accidents. Okay? We look more than that. Okay? Because we understand that when we attain the real true self, and when we know about our own true nature, this will bring some good effect, not just for us, but also to all society that we live in. Okay? Because when we attain the real true self, this become a channel of grace for the whole society. So that's why Prof. Al-Atas always mentioned about education that need to produce a good man. Okay? Good man meaning one aspect of good man is the one who really know about his nature of self. And then the one who always striving to bring back himself to the real true self. Okay? This kind of thing is actually become a channel of grace for the whole society. For the whole society. Or become something like a rahmah for the society. When the good self exists in those society. So this becomes something like a source of grace for the society, or the channel of mercy for the society. Because those kind of individual or person is a living embodiment of truth. The one who know about his true self is actually, when they live in the society, himself is become the living embodiment of the truth. Okay? Because why? Because he really know about his limit. He know about his own limitation. He know what to do, and he also know what not ought to be done. He know that what he should do and what he should not do. He will know that. Even when he keep quiet, is also something beneficial. Because sometimes when people doesn't know the limit, they just involve in anything. That will bring some kind of destructive element in the society. But this kind of people, when they know the limit, when they know that they are not due to that kind of involvement, so they do not involve. And when they do not involve, that becomes something meaningful also to the society. Even when he don't do that, he do not not to do something, or he just keep quiet, like some of our good people. So that's why Rasulullah in one of the hadiths mentioned that if you don't know, it is better that you just keep quiet instead of you just involved in that kind of thing, because it will bring all kind of destructive consequences to the society. So that's why we say that man has an innate awareness of eternity, which is deeply imprinted upon himself. So meaning that man has an innate awareness of eternity, okay, which is deeply imprinted upon himself. Because the justification is that the reason is that man by nature belongs to a reality beyond time. While he is living in time. Okay. While he is living in time, actually, his nature belongs to a reality beyond time. Okay. So that's why, therefore, we as a human being need of help from something eternal to make our attachment to the eternal possible. Okay, like revelation, we really need revelation, something eternal, the one which we call qadim in terms of its principle, because it's kalamullah, qadim. So we need something eternal in order for us to have some kind of attachment with the eternal, because we are also in reality eternal in terms of our true element. Okay. So that's why to be human is to experience a mode of existence in which every moment of time is related vertically to eternity. That's a kind of a true human experience that we need to have. And in that human, in his experience, he have to experience a mode of existence in which every moment of time is related vertically to eternity. Because this kind of mode of being and action determine our final end beyond the context of the phenomenal world. Okay, because we need always to concern about our final end, and for our final end determined through the mode of our being and action. If our being and action is just confined to this phenomenal world, so it is not really bring us to the good ultimate end. Okay, but if our final, if our mode of being and action is determined by or is something related to something eternal, okay, and ourselves always attached with something eternal, so it will bring to a good or ultimate end. Okay. So that's why we have the word like happiness, sa'adah, shaqawah, misery. That depend on the mode of our being and the modes of our action. Okay, and based on our experience. So that's why we always emphasize in this series of talk that knowing the self is very important. Okay, so we have all kind of Quranic verses that mention the importance of knowing our own self. For example, sanurihum ayatina fil afaq wa fi anfusihim hatta yatabayyana lahum annahu al-haq, something like that, you know. And then fil ardi ayatun lil muqinin wa fi anfusikum afala tubsirun. Meaning that the path of knowing the self is based on our discussion of this kind of thing. Because when we talk about knowing the self, okay, we have to always have a deeper discussion or try to come to a depth understanding about the nature of ourselves. The halun nafs al-insaniyah wa amruha wa kaunuha. Okay, in Arabic. And then ma'rifatu quwaha wa junuduha. Mana knowing all kind of faculties that in us, and then the power that they have. That also very important when you talk about arafa nafsah. Okay, man arafa nafsah required you to understand about all kind of faculties that being equipped by God unto us, and we have to know its use and what kind of benefit that going to be brought by this kind of faculties. Okay, and we also, when we talk about the man arafa nafs, ma'rifatun nafs also requires you to know about what constitute the element of mortality in us, and what constitute the element of eternity in us. Okay, we have to know that. And what kind of thing that bring happiness, real true happiness, and what kind of thing that could bring misery in our life, that kind of thing, or the knowledge that relate to those kind of thing. So we have to understand that when we talk about faculty, each of our faculty does not work in isolation. Okay, it is in the whole system, and they act in a coherent manner. Okay, so one faculty to another faculty, the something like the exact preponderant influence upon the preparation for a particular action, beginning with reflecting over the means of acquiring useful things and avoiding harmful things, and then come to this kind of thing that relate to the quality state of our heart. Okay, so another thing that I need to mention here is that human is able enough to reflect the proof of first the existence of God, okay, and the oneness of God, and all kind of transcendental elements. Our soul, or the human nature, is be able to reflect those kind of things. Okay, because God, I mentioned before that when we talk the human soul or Ruh al-Insan, when we are born, we are already in the state of perfect, Kamel. We are already in the state of Baligh, mature. We are also in the state of Aqil, intelligent. We are already in the state of conscious or knowing, Arif. We are also in the state of believing, Mu'min, meaning that all human soul, when they are born, they are already Mu'min. They are already Mu'min. Okay? So because of that, when we talk about the human soul, it is already in that state, in the state of believing. Believing about what? Believing about the oneness of God. Okay? It is already in the state of affirming His Lordship. In Arabic, muqir. So that's why we as human beings, we have to have something like a conscience about or awareness to always serve Allah, only Allah as our God. Okay, and then we must continue in that kind of disposition, meaning that we must not serve only not serve except Allah, and we must always be in that kind of disposition. Okay, because of all kind of things that already been equipped by God unto us in our inner self. So that's why we mentioned that people could become zalim or unjust to himself because they deny the ability or the nature of faculty that have been equipped by God into themselves, which can bring themselves to the real true self. So through this kind of discussion, we could conclude that the way we understand ourselves, okay, the way we understand ourselves will determine the way we understand the nature of God. Okay, and the way we understand the nature of God will reflect the way we submit and the way we behave. Okay, everything started with the way of how we understand our own self. If we understand our own self properly, it will bring ourselves to understand about God. So that's why man arafa nafsahu arafa rabbahu, because the way you understand about the nature of God will reflect the way you submit and reflect the way you behave. This is very important. So that's why it is important to know God through the knowing of our own self. Okay, because by knowing God, we will become the perfect human being, and we are less susceptible to all kind of sins. Because when we talk about sins, this is a primary factor that could bring deform to our real nature. Okay? And by knowing God, through knowing our own true self, it will bring ourselves to a true purpose and the true meaning of life. Okay. So at the same time, by knowing our own self, and after that, we know that it will lead gradually to the knowing of God. It will help us in order to have a correct attitude towards God. Okay. So how? When we mention about the correct attitude towards God, in what way? First, we always have something like always involved in practicing what we call systematic moral introspection or muraqabah al-qalb. Or in a simplest way to translate that, the supervision of self. Muraqabah al-qalb or muraqabah an-nafs. Meaning that we bring our patience, our desire, our anger under control. Because we know that with such control, it will bring about virtue in ourselves. And with those kind of virtue, when that virtues affect our action, that action will be classified as amal saleh. Okay, that action will bring some kind of reform into our individual life and also to the society. So that's why we call amal saleh. And the one who have that kind of quality is being called insan saleh, salihun. Okay, meaning that this amal saleh based on virtue and started by we knowing our own self and involved in practicing muraqabah and nafs. Okay, this kind of amal saleh actually having a tawhidic value. Okay, That's why, because of this Tawhidic value, that acts become something like life. So that's why I remember what who's that? The Hikam of Ibn Athaillah. Okay, al-a'malu suwadun qa'imah. Our action is only like a dead body, like a corpse. Al-a'malu suwadun qa'imah wa arwahuha wujudu sirril ikhlasi fiha. The amal can become meaningful, something like a life, when it is there what we call ikhlas, meaning that ikhlas is a part of Tawhid values that exist in our amal. So when we talk about amal soleh also, maknanya what contained in amal soleh is that values, the Tawhidic value or Tawhidic element exists in it. So that's why that amal become the amal soleh. Okay, so whatever good that you did for the society, but if it is not having that kind of element which you call Tawhidic element in it, so it actually doesn't have any meaning with as regard to our real true nature of self. Okay, that's why when we die over there, when we make to realize, but some of our action in this world are actually nothing. Because it doesn't have any element of Tawhid in it. So, meaning that it is something like what Ibn Athaillah mentioned, it is like a dead body. Doesn't give any benefit. Okay, that's why it's very, very good and beautiful statement. Al-a'malu suwarun qa'imah wa arwahuha wujudu sirril ikhlasi fiha. Okay. So that's why the question about ikhlas, ihsan is something related with the Tawhidic aspect. Okay. Because that's why when we talk about ourselves, we also need to understand that this light of Tawhid is already there in ourselves. So it's become something like exists in potentiality and wait for our action for that to be exist in actuality. This light of Tawhid. Okay, that's why when this light of Tawhid come out from ourselves, okay, it will bring us to the real true perspective about life. So that's why we can see that those people who have this light of Tawhid, and then this light of Tawhid become actualized in themselves, they will just emphasize in making an impact for a specific intentional objective in what they are doing. So that's why anything that they did will become what we call sunnah hasanah, or good precedent, because what they did is based on the light of Tawhid that gradually being actualized from their inner self. Okay, and then what drives them for result, it always by the highest principle, not by the any kind of, but the drive for result, it always being guided by the highest principle, and that highest principle is ultimately referring to the seeking the blessing of God, to get the mardatillah, okay, to seek the blessing of God. Okay, this kind of thing shows that at least we have to know that when we talk our individuality is actually not separate from the light of Tawhid. So that we have to find it. Where is the light of Tawhid in us, and how to actualize it? Because a human individuality is not separate from it. The light of Tawhid is always there. It is up to us in order to make this light of Tawhid to penetrate all of our feeling and consciousness and infuse any of our faculty. So the problem is that we don't do and our education sometime, and what we are trying to do is not in any way help this light of Tawhid to penetrate us. Okay, penetrate all of especially our feeling, our consciousness, and make sure that this light of Tawhid infuse every faculty and enlighten our reason, our emotion, our motive. Okay. Unfortunately, most of our Muslim now is not doing something in order for it to give that kind of effect to us. Okay. So that's why we have always to remind our Muslim about the importance of understanding about the nature of self and understanding what kind of thing is there in ourself, because it is something like a treasure, you know. This light of Tawhid is like a treasure being enclosed in our heart. Okay, it has enclosed within our heart. So we have to make it open. Our heart need to be open and lightened so that this light of Tawhid will come out. And so this light of Tawhid will potentially bring you to attain Iman and Ma'rifah. So Iman and Ma'rifah started start with this light of Tawhid. And when this Iman and Ma'rifah being attained, we can control of our deeds and all of our thoughts. So that's why this light of Tawhid is very important. With this light of Tawhid, okay, we will always in a state of remembering God, and we will devote our mind exclusively to Him and finally become intimate with Him. So that's why we have the term like Mahabbatullah. Mahabbatullah meaning that referring to a kind of intimacy with our Creator, a kind of communion, okay, a very close relation, and then it involves our devotion solely for Him and exclusively to Him, that Mahabbatullah. But if the principle of Tawhid is not properly established in the self, even when we talk about Islamic ethic is not adequately function in our life. So we cannot talk about Islamic ethic when we use the word Islamic there. When we mention about Islamic ethic, the aspect of Tawhid must be there. The one who talk about it should be the one who the light of Tawhid is already come out from his self. Okay, so we cannot talk about ethic if your light of Tawhid is still something like in the state of potentiality. Okay, you have to make sure at least it come out a little bit for you to talk a little bit about ethics and morality. Okay, so it is still there. So don't talk about ethics and morality, and don't ever dare to talk about integrity. So that's why for the people who know about this kind of thing, they are always in the state of being ethical. And then sometimes people will ask, what incentive for us to be ethical? Because sometimes when we do something ethical, it is in the expense of our physical life, in the expense of our material gain. Like myself also, being kicked from the government because I talk more about ethics and morality, you know. So people will start to ask, what incentive that you have in order for you to endure in ethical practice? Because for them you're suffering a lot when you involve or indulge in ethical matters, you know. when you try to endure or maintain or establish certain principle on ethics, based on the light of Tawheed. People will start to attack you, and then they will not just attack you, but they will bring you to all kind of envious motive. They will have all kind of envious motive towards you. So, how to answer that? What incentive that you have, or what still motivate you? What answer do you have in mind in that manner? Okay, because of course I don't have so much money now, because talking a lot about ethics, because talking a lot about Islam, talking a lot about the nature of self for the government officers, but still they don't be able to understand and appreciate that. And still, when we establish, our teacher established the institute, they destroy that. So, what incentive is our teacher have when he is still talking about the self, when he's still talking about the nature of justice, when he's still talking about the metaphysical principle of Islam? He's still continuing talking about that, What incentive that he has in order to do that? We have to ask ourselves. I don't ask him. I already know the answer that he has. Okay. Okay. What actually that you have as an answer for that? The Brother Arif, what is your answer? My answer is that to be intimacy with my Creator. I don't bother about other thing, but I bother is how close I am, how intimate I am with my Creator. And then my Creator says that in order to be close to me, you first have to understand your own self, because your own self is originated from something of my spirit. It's not other thing. It's something of my spirit. I breathe to the physical body of you, introduce this kind of spirit to the physical body, until that even that physical spirit, at once it is a physical body of the animal spirit, now transform into what they call bashar, because of the interaction of that spirit to the physical body. So that is my motivation. That is my motivation. I don't care what others say. Even we lost everything. So that's why we can see in the history of Islam, the Sahaba, they lost everything actually. From rich, now nothing. They don't have anything because of they spend all of their wealth for Islam, because of they want to have some kind of intimacy with the Creator. And then the other thing is about ru'yatullah, the final or the ultimate end of happiness. That is the real happiness. Meaning that by having a real vision about our God over there, we don't want any other thing after that. We don't have any kind of idea about happiness after that, when we be able to see our Creator. What do you think? Anything after we see the Creator that you want? Of course you don't want other thing, because you already see so far a zat or entity that in this world you all your life you devote, you submit. Now you have an opportunity because of what you did and according to what he want you to do. So now you will be able to attain that kind of happiness. So of course, we don't want other thing after that, because that is the real true happiness. Okay, so that's why this aspect of Tawheed is very important. Okay. Oh, it's already 10:30. No, it's
But some would argue that intimacy is also un-Islamic. And some people would, perhaps for one reason or the other,
yeah.
would be afraid that it's considered convenient.
Oh, what is it?
They would think that it's a kind of Christian notion of communion.
Oh, that the different thing. The same thing that when we talk about Wahdatul Wujud. Okay. Now, there's some group they now start to attack this concept Wahdatul Wujud, but their understanding on Wahdatul Wujud is wrong. They use their wrong perception of Wahdatul Wujud in attacking the right nature of Wahdatul Wujud. The same thing that you mentioned just now, you know. The concept, what we have in our understanding about the conception of communions, of intimacy with God, is totally different of what those people used to have. So I think the same thing also when we talk about happiness, the same thing. Okay, what those people perceive about happiness is totally different from what we understand about happiness. So so that's why I think we have to go back and try to understand again what it means by Tawheed. Tawheed is very important, you know, because what I mentioned just now, it's enclosed in your heart, it is already there. You have to understand it properly. What does it mean by Tawheed, and what kind of affirmation that we need to have in order to submit or to acknowledge this principle of Tawheed. We have to have some kind of or specific form of acknowledgement with that nature of Tawheed that is already there in yourself. So that's why when we talk about this kalimah syahadah, it is actually the expression of Tawheed, the expression about the uniqueness of our true God. Okay, and then and the expression about that His alone is the focus of all praises, focus of all worship, meaning that all praises and all kinds of worship is truly due to Him. Okay, that's why only He Himself can taught us on how to praise Him. Okay, no other things or no other creation have that ability to teach us about how to praise God. So that's why in one of the hadith, Rasulullah used to say, La uhsi thana'an alayka anta kama asnaita ala nafsik. I do not render praises unto you. You are what you own praises declare you, something like that, you know. So so this Tawheed, I think I need to continue again next time. I think next time we will focus on this aspect Tawheed, because something simple about Tawheed before we close our session today. This is something very simple about the oneness of God, about the existence of supreme power, something like that, you know. And then we as a human being, actually we has an ability to realize and recognize it. That is very important. Okay, we as a human being, we has an ability to recognize that, to acknowledge that, and to realize that. So how? This is going to be answered in our next session. Okay, after Ramadan. Okay, after Ramadan, we have to wait another 1.5 months to for us to discuss about this, because this is something got to do with our innate recognition of God's oneness. So it's something interesting, something which is a bit difficult to explain, but we try our best to explain that, because that is something got to do with the essence of our primordial nature, which we mean fitrah. Okay, something got to do with that, and something that God already instilled in you. This aspect Tawhid is already there in you. Because of that, we also going to discuss about mithaq, because that mithaq also is something got to do with this aspect Tawhid. Okay. Because this Tawhid is something like a basis of man's intuitive ability to discern between right and wrong, true and false. Okay, falhamaha fujuraha wa taqwaha. That kind of thing is because of that Tawhid being instilled in you. So that's why you wahadainahun najdain, something like that, you know. So that kind of thing relate to this aspect Tawhid. So that's why we need more time to, and I will try my best to make it simple. Okay, especially about what we discussed in the beginning of our session. I think it is a bit difficult for you to understand. I'm going to repeat it again next time in a more understandable manner. Okay, and I will try my best to bring all kind of example for you to easily grasp and understand that kind of thing. Because when Professor Al-Atas mentioned about this thing, let's say when I first listening to his lecture on this subject matter, I also have all kind of difficulties in understand it. It'll take me about more than 10 years in order to understand. I have to read again, and then it's not just read of what he trying to explain in his book, but actually later I found that what he trying, first he makes me easy to understand the works of all great ulama of the past on this topic, the nature of man. He make me simple for me to understand Al-Ghazali, Ibn Sina, Fakhrul Razi, something like that, you know. Make us easy to understand those work, because the way he write things here, the nature of man, make those works understandable to me. Okay, that is one thing. And then what he's trying to do is, in order for us to have a proper understanding about ourselves in confronting the nature of modern psychology. Okay, this nature of man and the psychology of human soul, actually, it is an answer to the modern psychology. So you have to read this book first in that context. First, you have to understand the modern psychology itself, and then you have to understand the nature of the discussion by Professor Al-Atas about the nature of man, how this understanding could what we call become something like the element to criticize the modern psychology. Okay, and then this kind of understanding also help us in order not just to govern our own self, but also to govern the society. Because once you know how to govern yourself, you know how to govern your own family, and then after that you also know how to govern the whole kingdom. Because the antecedent of governing the kingdom, governing the state, and then to administering the government is the antecedent is that the governance of the self. Once you properly and successfully govern your own self, you will be successfully govern the whole society. But what we are looking now, people become like fail. And then they don't even know how even to govern the society, the state, because they actually don't know how to govern their own self. Because of that, we mentioned before that there are three nature of governance: siyasah tabi'iyah, siyasah aqliyah, siyasah tabi'iyah. Sometimes it's being called siyasah al-hawiyah, because you are just concerned about your emotion, about your feeling, about your about your desire, about fulfilling your bodily requirement, about your how to attain your hedonistic inclination, something like that, you know. That the type of governance that we have now in our society, because most of the self are of that kind of governance. Because we have four psychological element in us. First, the angelic element, because we are of that realm. We are of the angelic realm, alam al-malakut. So we have that kind of element in us and become a part that establish our psychology. So another three psychological element is desire, anger, and evil. Okay, that represent the nature of this physical world. Okay, evil, desire, and anger, and the nature of those psychological element is blameworthiness. Only one is trustworthiness, not praiseworthiness. Only one. So just imagine that one need to suppress these three, and this three is very powerful. This three is very powerful because we are not at that world. We are in this world, which is so much having a close significance with that three. We are so close with this world, and this world is also relate with nature of these three psychological elements. So this three psychological element is very powerful, although it is blameworthiness in its nature. So only one that we need we hope that it have a power to control and to suppress these three. And then if we know how to suppress and to subordinate these three elements, so it will bring some kind of good governance in us. So that's why we mentioned before, if we success in attaining those kind of governance, which we call siyasah ad-diniyah, or the kind of religious governance based on the principle of deen and tawhid. So it actually bring some kind of peace in you. So that's why Islam is also about peace. One definition about Islam is peace, no? And then one definition of deen is hisabus sahih, meaning that when we govern ourselves properly, and then this governance of self will affect the way of how we govern the society, because the society also representing those four elements. Okay, some members of our society are of the angelic element, but the majority of our people of the desire, of the anger, and of the evil. We can see all kind of politicians are so driven by the envious motive, which representing the evil, the psychological element of evil. That one in politics. And then we see most of our people reflecting the nature of desire in their life, because of the greed. Okay, because of their being greedy tamak, okay, greedy. So this representing the desire. So I think 80% of our people now is of that kind of psychological element. So just imagine, when each of the member of our society is of that kind of inclination or tendency, or being or what we say, the desire or the anger or the evil take charge of themselves, or that element is something that take over or take control themselves. So we can see a kind of society that we have now. So that's why we have all kind with regard to culture, we have all kind of hedonistic culture that we can see in the television, in the film, all kinds of hedonistic culture, because that something relate with nature of the psychological element that each individual person used to have. And most of I think the majority of our people are of that kind of need. So that's why our society become like corrupt, having a problem like the loss of adab, because of we cannot know, we don't know, or we fail to control that three element. Simple thing, only three element. And then there is only one element that we need to be sure that will become always supreme and superior, and always playing a role in taking properly taking charge of that three element. Okay, so that's why we have to always continue our discussion on this kind of thing. We try to do, although it is very difficult. And sometimes also I found that I understand something, but sometimes we come to a stage that we not be able to explain that. We know that, but we don't know the best way of how to explain that. That's why sometimes we used to explain something spiritual, but we don't know how to explain that to people. Although that spiritual experience is very, very significant and very, very useful for others also to know. Okay? But sometimes like this kind of thing, even though like myself, I took quite a long time to understand, not just to understand, to relate, to see some significance of the discussion about this thing. But still, there are still a lot of things that need to be improved and need to be reflected in order for me to share with you. Okay. So I hope that it is enough for tonight. It is already late. I'm sorry because it's already late. 10:50. I think. 10:50. But I hope that this discussion will be meaningful and at least give some benefit to you. Okay. Inshallah, we meet again after Ramadan. After Ramadan, might be during Shawwal. I think during Shawwal we'll meet again, middle of Shawwal. Just like I mentioned to you, we're going to continue a little bit about the principle of Tawheed and why that is important and how to endure ourselves in that principle. Okay, inshallah.
Barakallahu feekum, Sheikh Ruslan, for the wonderful closure to our sessions thus far. Yeah, it's mind-blowing, to say the least, really. So inshallah, we will reconvene on the 20th of May, which will be sometime after Ramadan. So between now and then, we'll have plenty of time to really just, have these, the knowledge really just simmer within us, and, inshallah, just, take, sprout within us, and hopefully give way to a further reinvigoration of our ibadat in affirming tawheed in all aspects of our lives. So we ask Allah to protect Prophet Allah's, to continue to bless him and to continue to bless all the students of all his students, especially in Sheikh Raslan. And we ask Allah to bless him for his kindness and grace in sharing with us, in sacrificing some of his time to help us navigate these treacherous waters of modernity. And we ask Allah to make this upcoming Ramadan a time of intense reflection and a fertile ground for us to be able to plant the seeds that come with the knowledge that Sheikh Raslan has shared with us, and in so doing reveal further depths to the inner realities that come with what Prophet has brought with the Prophet Gamina. Amin thumma amin amin ya rabbal alamin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. O Lord, we admit that we have committed sins and that we have exceeded the bounds such that we are on the brink of the fire. So turn us with a repentance which washes away every wrongdoing and conceal our faults and calm our fears, and forgive our parents and our children and our family, our brothers and all our friends, and all those who we love, and our neighbors and companions, and all the Muslims. Amin. O Lord, listen to us out of your grace and generosity and your favor, not because of our own actions. Through the messenger of Mustafa, bless us with all we ask for. My Lord, send peace and blessings upon him, the number of every grain, and upon his family and companions, as much as rain falls from the clouds, and all thanks and praise be to Allah in the beginning and in the end. Ya Rabbana tarafna bi annana tarafna wa annana asrafna ala ladha ashrafna fatub alayna tawba taghsil kulli haba wastur lana al-awrati wa aminir ra'ati waghfir li walidina rabbi wa mauludina wal ahli wal ikhwani wa sairil khillani wa kulli dhi mahabba aw jiratin aw sohbah wal muslimina ajma'. Amin rabbi isma' fadlan wajudan manna la biktisabi minna bil mustafa rasuli nadha bi kulli suli salla wa sallam rabbi alaihi adal habi wa alihi wa sahbi idadat tashih suhbi walhamdulillahi fil badi wat tanahi subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalina walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Bisiril Fatihah.
Now help yourself to some refreshments in the kitchen.
عرفت الهوى مذ عرفت هواك وأغلقت قلبي على من عداك. عرفت الهوى مذ عرفت هواك وأغلقت قلبي على من عداك. وكنت أناجيك يا من ترى